All right. So, all right, let me check if we're on. I think we are. We got to wait for people to come in here too.
Oh, Lordy.
Well, I said Discord was easy, but I guess it's not, apparently.
Well, man, I don't know. I'm just kind of cursed in a lot of ways, though. It's quite possible it's all just my fault.
No, I think it's on my end. All right. So, all right, put in the chat if you guys just heard what he said. If you guys can, please let me know. Let's so we can continue on. If it doesn't, then I don't know what we're gonna do. But because I can only do so
Chat,
much.
please
Yeah.
confirm if I'm a dumbass.
All right, we got a yippee working. Yes, okay. So you guys heard him, right? I just want to make sure. We just want to make sure that he's hearing, not through my microphone, not through my headphones. Okay. All right. Now maybe give okay. So since people missed
Just
everything,
start all over.
maybe
Yeah,
give just like
there is no issue with that.
yeah. Maybe give like a brief summary of what you were talking about and then continue on with what you were saying. I think you were in the part where you're the Asian, you're part Japanese. So just maybe give like a brief summary of what you were talking about before and then go into the being, part Japanese.
Yeah, so I hope everyone can hear me now, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. This is, going to be a very interesting story to say the least. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I am half Japanese. I come from a very conservative background from all sides of my family. My father's side's LDS, better known as Mormons, right? So no tobacco, alcohol, no drugs of any kind. And then my mother's side, obviously, we're very strictly honor-driven society. So, if you want to be a respectable person, you stay away from drugs, really. So, and on top of all that, my father, he was also a Marine. So there's just about drugs. I've never got a talk about drugs in my life except like in school where they talk about in health class, oh, tell us about the dangers of alcohol, cigarettes, and whatnot, right? But
Yeah.
that wasn't a real kind of drug class. It's just a few days of going over stuff. Now
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've always known I was going to be a Marine. So when I turned 17 and I was a senior in high school, I was like, you know what, I just need to go and enlist in the Marine Corps. So, you go through, you get fingerprinted, you get blood tested, an old man checks out your butthole, and, you pass, and you're like, okay, cool. Now you're considered a recruit, you're going to be going into the Marine Corps. That's what you want to do. I wanted to be a machine gunner. I wanted to, as sad as it sounds, just blast people's heads off. But my mom, she didn't sign the paperwork at all. So I became a combat engineer instead. Combat engineers were this group of people that get to blow stuff up. We're kicking in people's doors. We're building bridges. We're building schools. We're building homes for villages. We're looking for IEDs. We're looking for landmines. We're shooting rockets at stuff. We're building huge obstacles. We're operating robots. Like we get to do an insane amount of stuff. But it's still not considered infantry. So my mom signed the paperwork because she didn't really know what was going on. She just didn't want me to be a O3. So I go in. I pass high school. I pass all the physical requirements, and I go in, and it's July 2015. So that anniversary for me has passed recently. But
Mm.
went through boot camp, and people joke, but boot camp really is the easiest part of the military because there's safety in everything. Everything has a very strict schedule, right? You just follow orders. After the Marine Corps boot camp, it is wild. It is very. um, crazy to say the least. You're in the fleet, you're getting hazed, every day is vastly different. One day you might be sitting in a classroom learning about, you're doing all the math for the explosives and whatnot, right? REFs, and you're calculating how much det cord you need. And then the next day, you're off in the field, you're storming beaches, you're training and whatnot. It's so different every single day. Action packed, adrenaline rush all the time. It is very exhausting, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. And after my first couple of months in the fleet, I actually was stationed and transferred over into Jungle Warfare Training Center to become a staff member and instructor. So my job was to train Marines, other branches of the military, foreign military, and government agencies on how to survive in jungle environments around the world. That was pretty extreme because I was 19 years old at the time, and now I'm getting put in charge of battalions of Marines, teaching them how to rappel, medical stuff, how to patrol in the jungle, look for enemies, do the jungle e-course, the endurance course, which is like 4 miles long, up and down mountains. You got rappels to get down. You have to climb obstacles. You got to swim through mud. It's really intensive training, but I loved every second of it. I got a concussion when I was at Jungle Warfare as an instructor. It was the day before my 20th birthday. And from that point on, I used to get these insane migraines that were so debilitating. I could not rest well after that point. These migraines would not go away with any kind of medication or anything. Um, in Japan, the legal drinking age is actually 20, same with smoking and whatnot, right? So, uh, Marines that get stationed in Japan get the pleasure of legally being allowed to drink 1 year earlier than any other Marine Corps kind of duty station, just because we follow under Japanese law also, which means it's also easier to get caught by Japanese police if you're breaking international laws, right? There's a lot more scrutiny that you get put under versus dealing with American police. But for me, I always was a goody goody, trying to stay out of trouble and whatnot because I wanted to be a good Marine. um, the Marine Corps has a zero drug tolerance policy, so I've never seen drugs being used. At most in the Marine Corps, I only use three things: caffeine, alcohol, nicotine. I'd only use nicotine once a year whenever it was the Marine Corps birthday, and we would smoke a cigar together, but that was it. Caffeine I'd have once in a while, and alcohol I nearly died of alcohol poisoning my very first night at Jungle Warfare. It was awful. That was the first time I ever tried alcohol, really. But I was given double shots of Everclear and gin, and like round after round. A few hours later, I was throwing up blood and black vomit all over this brand new room that I got put into. I mean, it's not really brand new, but it was new to me because that was my first night at Jungle Warfare. I had three other roommates there, and so they had to strip me naked, throw me in the bathroom, and I woke up 24 hours later on the floor with a pair of dried waffles and eggs next to my face. And my staff sergeant that day blasted everyone for nearly killing me. But from that point on, right, that was my first real psychoactive experience. So I kind of had this like hatred for alcohol, but like I would still use it because after that point, I realized if you drink it in moderation, it can help you relax because we're doing such intensive stuff all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, for me, like I would hear stories from Marines about how they used to use drugs before the Marine Corps. So I got to hear about cannabis and LSD and mushrooms and peyote. I had a couple of Marines that I served with. They were from the Navajo tribe, so I got to hear a tiny bit about peyote. I heard it was this weird little cactus that grows in the desert. I heard from one of my junior Marines how he smoked DMT one time and like he saw demons chasing him down the freeway. And I was like, man, this sounds fucking wild. Like, I kind of want to try that, but only if I was on my deathbed because I wanted to be a goody goody. I never wanted to break the law. So I was always I would listen to these stories because I was interested, but I was always like, man, just got to stay away. It's not for me. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to do anything like that. So after jungle warfare, I got sent back to combat assault battalion where, yeah, my job was basically storm beaches, blow stuff up, go back out of the jungle and try to reintegrate back in normal Marine Corps life. And after that, you know,
Oh, breaking up here. Oh, did it get disconnected? Um, Hello?
how about now?
Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, continue on. Sorry, I broke up there for a little bit.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, so after jungle warfare, I was sent over to North Carolina and I was working on the air wing for a bit. I kind of hated that because it was a lot slower. There was just right like in the Marine Corps, we're for the air wing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are supposed to rebuild airways if they get bombed. We're supposed to go out with quickcrete or whatever and patch up bomb craters. Well, obviously, no one's bombing North Carolina at the moment, so you don't really do that. So it was mostly just school building, which I mean, I loved. It was a lot of field work, just training and trying to show other Marines how we did stuff overseas and whatnot, because it's always this constant rotation. Everyone's from all these different bases and you get conglomerated into these other groups. And so you're trying to show what kind of valuable skills you bring to the table as a Marine. Uh, but yeah, after my TBI in jungle warfare, I kind of had these migraines that were pretty intensive. Um, it was just right? Like no Tylenol, Motrin, or anything would ever fix the migraine. It'd go away after a day or two, but it was really intensive where it felt like someone was taking a hydraulic press
Ooh,
from all sides and squishing my skull in. It was
ow.
intense. Like I can't even describe it because when people get headaches, it doesn't sound too bad. Like obviously their head kind of hurts, but for me, these migraines were intense. I just can't emphasize that enough to people. So like Corman, I wouldn't really go to medical for stuff because nothing that they ever gave me would ever help. And it was just hard to, like wake up at 3 a.m. with this pounding migraine, drive over to base and, do a 13-mile run or whatever was
Yeah.
on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I still did my job to the best of my abilities. I got sent over to Mountain Warfare Training Center. Uh, one of my last few months in the Marine Corps, so it was pretty nice. Negative 17 degrees out, and we're climbing mountains all the time. We're doing all sorts of crazy stuff out there too. But I got out in 2019, so I've been out for a few years now and I had these extreme suicidal ideations all the time, major depression because I went from this unit and esprit de corps where we're all surrounded by each other, we're gonna die for each other, we're gonna uplift each other through everything, whether the funniest moments in life or the worst moments ever, right? We're there for each other. We've for me it's kind of sad. I've lost a handful of my friends to suicide or training accidents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kids that are like 19 years old, early 20s, and they've passed on, right? I'm very grateful for me to still be alive today. I never thought I would have made it past the age of 21, to be honest.
How old are you now?
Um, I'm 27 now, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm just, yeah, yeah, I'm only a couple years older than you, I think, right?
Yeah. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked to hear that because you're so smart.
Yeah, a lot of people are. A lot of people, when they talk to me, they think I'm like this 50-year-old, like maybe a Vietnam veteran or Gulf War veteran or something. But for me, right, like I'm literally only 27.
Damn.
Uh, but yeah, so in the year 2019, I got out because I was like, I'm not going to sign another contract. I would have done 20 years if I could have stayed at jungle warfare because like that was my passion, just being this wild marine, picking up these venomous snakes called habu, and dealing with people and showing them how to survive in the jungles. We trained the British Royal Marines. We had the Japanese Ground Self Defense Force. We had, Air Force, Navy, Army. They were all coming in training with us. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do 4 years and get out. I wanted to be a 20-year Marine like my father, but that just wasn't the case. Those migraines just got way too intense for me. Um, but yeah, in the year 2019, when I got out, I had a very young family, and I started my own company where I did art for a living. I've been doing art for a good while. I've been doing it since high school, just steel sculptures that are usable per se. I won't get into too many details about that, but that was my passion, right? Like I've been on podcasts talking about my art. I've been on newspaper, magazine articles and stuff. It was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. There's even a show that I'd like to go on that I was invited on, but that famous virus happened in 2020, so literally a month after I got emailed to be on the show, it was canceled. So that's always fun.
Ah.
Uh, but yeah, so in 2020, after dealing with that whole virus thing, my company kind of faded into nothingness. I had a very good friend named Lily in high school. She was actually one of the very first people I met when I moved out to this state. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, we were a military family, so we moved all the time. And I finally had a place where I could kind of stay around for a few years and make friends. And Lily, she came over to my workshop and she told me all about her mushroom journey and how she transcended into heaven at a park. And I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, right? Like, I had no idea. I heard in high school that, people found these mushrooms that were growing on cow shit. You eat them, you get food poisoning, and you hallucinate, right? That's what I heard. And like, that sounds so dangerous. I gotta stay away from that. But she told me I needed to try that and see what happens. So I spent a year and a half looking for mushrooms. I kept asking all these people I knew in high school who were stoners. I was trying to find like how people were getting a hold of psilocybin mushrooms. In the spring of 2020, like a couple months after she, talked about that, I signed up for a clinical study that was going on studying veterans who had traumatic brain injuries who were going to be sent down to Jamaica to undergo, a mushroom journey. In the Imperial College of London was going to be studying the brains of us to see the benefits of magic mushrooms. So I signed up for that. It's free. I don't have to worry about the legalities because I've always been worried about breaking the law because I always wanted to be a goody goody. Uh, but after the VA wasn't able to help me at all, I figured I need as much help as possible from stuff that the Western world isn't too fond of. So I I emailed them. They emailed me back saying like that I was accepted, but they had to wait on funding and stuff. And then fast forward to a few years later, I was accepted, but in August 2021, so that time frame's coming up. My wife's uncle came up from Utah, and he gave my mother-in-law a bag full of mushrooms. And so she knew I've always been trying to get a hold of these things. So one Sunday morning, I walked in and she handed me this Ziploc bag with a 5 gram, like penis envy mushroom.
Oh.
This thing was like monstrous looking. It was covered in like blue and green colors and it was just wrinkled up. And I was like, this is it. This is the thing that I've been searching for all this time.
Wait, so you got penis envy first out of all the other mushrooms
Yeah.
that you could have gotten. Okay, that's metaphorical. Um.
Yeah, I know, right? Uh, So yeah, I mean, so during this whole time, right, like this year and a half waiting, I was looking up how, right, I was looking at how clinical depression was being cured with psilocybin mushrooms. I was looking at how people were taking it indigenously. I was watching like Hamilton Morris documentaries and right, like watching Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia,
Yeah, yeah.
like Mushrooms of Mexico. I watched that episode over 100 times, waiting for mushrooms. I would fall asleep to it. I was taking notes. I was learning about anything and everything I could ever find about it. I was actually helping people online how to identify, Psilocybe cubensis, right? One of the most common mushrooms that people find in Florida that are psychoactive. I was helping people identify it because I've been trained to look for these things. My state, oddly enough, has 8 or 9 psychoactive mushrooms that contain psilocybin. I have not found a single one. I've been searching this entire time. I would hike to the tops of mountains where they've been reported. I would search every single lawn and like wood chip bed that was possible. Right, I was searching through cow fields in the middle of the night, looking in the darkness, looking for mushrooms, and could not find a single one that I could verify was in actual psilocybin. Right, it sucked. And in the state where I live, we're one of 3 states where it's actually illegal to have spores mailed out to you. Every other state, right, you can buy them for microscopy purposes. You're allowed to look under a microscope. You're allowed to look at spores, but not in my state. So for me, right, when I got a hold of these mushrooms, I had to teach myself how to cultivate them. Because if it took me a long time to get them, I might as well learn how to grow them myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So my youngest brother, I have a handful of siblings, but my youngest brother, he was still in high school at the time, and I found out later on that he was cultivating mushrooms this whole time, and he was going through college courses and studying psychedelic chemistry and all that. I had no idea. Oh, I'm one of the last people in my sibling group to ever try psychoactive compounds. Um, so he taught me how to pour agar, like in ketchup cups. I was learning how to build a still air box and how
Wait,
to
wait, wait.
cook rice.
What's agar?
Agar is a gelatinous, like seaweed extract. You can use it in vegan desserts, like for Jello and stuff.
Okay, okay.
It just comes from seaweed,
Hmm.
but it's a very nutritionist kind of media where you put spores on, you put bacteria on, right? Like you see the petri dishes, that's agar, right? So you
Okay.
can grow stuff out and you can see if there's contamination. So I learned how to pour agar really quick, right? And just learn how to grow mushrooms all myself. I would go to the store like Walmart, right? And I would buy bags of brown rice, cook them myself using a thrift store pressure cooker, and inject these things with liquid cultures out of these like mushrooms, right? You'd scrape up some agar, throw it into the honey water, let it grow for a couple months until it's nice and thick, and then inject it into brown rice that's sterilized. You let it sit in a cupboard for a month or so. You shake it up once in a while, and then you dump it out into plastic bins you buy from Walmart for like $1. And you just give them some mist of like distilled water, and then mushrooms would grow 2 weeks later. Right? It was awesome because a few days before Christmas, I had my very first penis envy harvest. This thing was massive. It was about the size of my hand, or at least it was massive for me at the time. But I was growing mushrooms around Christmas time. That's when I got my very first harvest, and I was pretty excited. Um, but like, yeah, my very first trip in August of 2021, I took 3/4 of a gram, 0.75 grams. I just took a knife and cut a quarter of that cap off, weighed it out to make sure it was less than a gram because I heard that stuff can be more potent.
Wait, you
I
said
ate
the
it
penis
and I was like,
envy?
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, yeah. And then I ate it. My taste buds were like, what is this shit? It tastes like cannabis smoke and like burnt popcorn. And I was like trying to choke it down and like swallow it real quick. And then 30 minutes later, I stood up from the bed and it felt like I just got punched in the face and there was like waves forming around me. And then like I had to lay down and I had this crazy trip where I was like bawling my eyes out for the first time ever. Right. I've never really cried too much before. And I was like, what is this? Human emotions? Like, what is this? What do you mean I'm supposed to love people or be compassionate? What does this even mean? Right? I was just this cold hearted human being, antisocial, hated every single person I could ever meet. That was me. I was just this hermit that lived in his house all the time, not really ever going out unless I like wanted to be out in the mountains by myself. But this trip was just so mind bending for me. It was just so transformative. So I had to change my whole life around. So I was like, you know what? I need to dedicate my life to this. I need to go on and show the world you can grow mushrooms, you can grow your own psychedelics, you can trade for this. Here's how to trip. Here's how to, do anything and everything you could ever want. So the week after, I was like, you know what? I need to go on a second trip. You mean to tell me that this stuff's illegal? This is great. So I took 1.1 grams and the walls were melting. I was making paintings with like blacklight paint. So it looked like it was melting off the painting. And like the wood grains in the ceiling fan were dripping like puddles and rippling around. It was crazy. So then I started telling a couple of my veteran buddies, like, hey, you guys got to try mushrooms. Like, you guys need to try this shit. It's awesome. So I start taking people in the mountains. We're a very mountainous place, right? Like, our largest city only has 200,000 people in it.
Yeah.
So I live at the base of the mountain, so I can just escape anytime I want to. So I would take my best friend out. I would take one of my friends. She was also a Marine Corps veteran. She was actually a partner of mine for the combat fitness test when we were recruits. I projectile vomited chili everywhere after I was done with that test. That was awful. But she and I, like, she moved back to here. She brought her husband, and my wife was in the car with them one day. And they're like, man, we heard mushrooms can be fantastic, but we don't know anyone with them. My wife smiled, turned around, and told them everything about what I've been doing secretly behind closed doors. She's like, oh, man, you got to talk to him because, he's just taking people out and they're tripping and like they're coming back as like these brand new human beings. So I take her husband out. We go up to this river. He eats them. He didn't say a single word for 6 hours. He looked at the mountains and he was tripping off 1 gram of the same penis envy I ate. And I texted his wife like, hey, you're going to have a brand new husband when he gets home today. And so she like, it blew her mind. So she took mushrooms with me the next day. I took her out into the mountains. She ate them. She meditated. She was sitting at the river watching the mountains melt and everything around. I gave her the same dose that I took, 1.1 grams, the same dose that I gave her husband. And she had this transformative experience where, as a veteran, she has like more PTSD than I do, even though our experiences are different, right? Like, it doesn't matter what your background is. Everyone's going to experience some form of PTSD, possibly. You don't have to get it from being blown up or shot at. You can get it from being in a car crash or, being yelled at as a kid. Right. I don't care. You don't have to dehumanize yourself thinking, oh, like, I don't have PTSD because, right, it's insignificant. PTSD is so horrific to any person who has it. I don't care what your situation is, and you should never put yourself down because you got PTSD in a certain way that doesn't sound badass. I don't care, man. But yeah, it saved her life. It saved her husband's life. My best friend, he took it, and like this kid, he was taking cannabis in high school, so like he had more experience with drugs than I did. And like it looked like he turned into a little kid just running around the mountains and like talking about this huge alien fishbowl in the sky that he was seeing. It was wild. But my youngest brother, He had Ziploc bags he saved from my sister who had mushrooms before us. So like I was swabbing Ziploc bags, swiping them on agar to grow mushrooms, and right, like I started growing a couple different varieties, and was just like, hey, like I gotta keep spreading the word. I gotta give out free spores to people who can't afford it, or they live in places like mine where it's illegal to get spores. And I started like writing trip reports because I was like really saddened, because anytime anyone told me about their trips, it always sounded so bland. It was like these 2 word or like 2 sentence stories of I ate 5 grams of mushrooms and the sky turned into a rainbow. And I was always like left with this, is there anything else you want to tell me about? Like, what was the feeling like? So during my first trip, I wrote every single detail down. I wrote what time I took it. I wrote what time the effects started to kick in. I wrote, oh, at 14:07, I tried to drink water, but I forgot how to use my mouth, so the water kept spilling out all over the bed. Right? Like I was writing everything because I was like, I need everyone to know about everything that they could ever want to about these kinds of compounds. Um, what does the taste like? How long did it take for me to eat it? Um, I start feeling like there's no pain, and 5 minutes after ingestion, my hearing becomes normal again. I don't have ringing in my ears anymore because I want people to learn about how it can benefit you or how it can harm you. So
Right.
I always knew that I was going to be like Psychonaut Marine. I just had to write these in-depth stories about these trips, and I needed to show people how they can grow anything and everything they could possibly ever want. So after my first year of cultivation, I got my first psychoactive plant, and that was Salvia divinorum.
Oh God.
Everyone loves to talk about salvia in terms of it, like, oh yeah, you smoke this extract and you're gonna live 50 years as a couch and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then after that, I got my first peyote plant, Lophophora williamsii. Beautiful plant, a lot of historical significance with it. And yeah, I started expanding from there. But yeah, do you have any questions before we continue on? I know I keep spouting off too much.
Oh no, it's okay. People are very interested in the chat. So uh well, since you were about to talk about salvia, like what are your experiences with salvia? How do you cultivate it yourself when you do it? Is there any experiences that stand out to you that really affected you in a good or bad way maybe? Or if it's just like one of those trips that are just like you can't really determine what it is. It's just like it's not neither good nor bad.
Yeah, great question. So for me, I've always been interested in growing plants and mushrooms as a kid, right? But um, I've always been growing all my own food that I can. Salvia divinorum, in my opinion, is one of the more difficult plants. Like there are a beautiful amount of people that are able to cultivate it successfully. My first attempt did not last that long. It only lasted a couple months. It was going okay, but the leaves would shrivel up and die. So I'd collect the dead leaves and put them in a bag and just, wait until later. And so when the time was right, I was like, I don't want to smoke this because I've actually never really smoked too much stuff before. Like, again, like I would only smoke a cigar once a year, possibly. And so, like, I don't have any experience with smoking. So I don't want to feel bad about wasting anything. So Salvia divinorum contains compounds called salvinorin A and salvinorin B. And one of the best ways you can take it, that the indigenous people were taking it, is quitting it, where they would take the leaves, shove it in between their lips and their gums, and just let it sit in there for as long as possible. So I took a handful of these leaves, shoved it in my mouth with some lemon juice, and let it sit there for like 20, 25 minutes. I'd have to look at the trip reports. It's actually one of the few things I've never published. And to me, the flavor is like rotting bell peppers. Like you just got to sit with it for as long as possible so those mucous membranes can, grasp onto the salvinorins as they course through your blood. And like the trip is more mild that way, right? It's not going to be as intensive as smoking 100x extract, right? And so for me, like time dilates, music slows down. You can actually pay attention to the stars moving across the sky. It is, I mean, it dilates it pretty intensely. It's beautiful, but I haven't dived too deep into salvia just because right? Like I want to try fresh leaves. So this is my third year cultivating it. So I'm hoping that in the fall time I can get a nice huge handful of fresh leaves, roll it up, and do the same thing. Just go for a much higher dose. The Salvinoran experience can actually be quite beneficial. I believe that it's actually being investigated for Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. So
Hmm.
there are medical benefits to these kinds of things. The person who first discovered you could extract and smoke it, he talked about having an experience where he's in his grandparents' like living room again. And that, I mean, first off, if you can kind of like time travel per se on psychedelics, I'd say go for it, right? If you need to dive deep into repressed memories or memories that you need to come back to the surface, I would say just, take an appropriate dose and just dive in, there's value in that.
Yeah. Um, so salvia, that's what I've always been afraid of salvia because it's just like about what you said about being turning into a couch for 50 billion years and just being in a
Yeah.
different universe or something like that. So I that's actually some very interesting news to hear about the Parkinson stuff. Is someone said, is there any articles on that? Can you like, is there what do you remember what you were reading for that, or if you just like
I, I can grab that after the chat and send that to you so you can post that to your story or something,
okay.
It's very valuable information. I actually really enjoy reading scientific literature to break it down for people so that they can read it a bit more. Because the more I break it down for other people, the more I can understand it better. Because all my life, right, I've heard about scare stories about these psychedelics and psychoactive compounds. So I've been trying to like help break that stigma away, and right, you shouldn't have to worry about what your reasoning for taking psychoactive compounds should be, right? You shouldn't have to worry about it, oh, this is for medicinal reasons only, or this is only for recreational so I can get fucked up on Saturday. You deserve to have the freedom to make those choices. You deserve the cognitive liberty to ingest what you wish,
Right.
right? That's what I want people to realize. Now, I'm not saying just be dumb and take whatever you want, whenever you want, all the time. Take things with a purpose. If you want to have fun, set your room up to have fun. Go clean your room, go put on a funny movie, go ingest a handful of mushrooms or something, right? If you want to have fun, go for it. If you want a spiritual purpose, go to the mountains, go clear your head, throw your phone in your room and drive away, take a couple tabs of, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, go ponder about the mysteries of the universe for 12 hours, right? You deserve the freedoms to do whatever you want. You shouldn't have to worry about the stigma, and you shouldn't have to worry about what other people think. And that's actually one of my biggest problems. No one really in my family even knows what I'm doing. No one in my friends group really knows what I'm doing. It's mostly just strangers, air quotes, around the internet that are aware of what I'm doing. I get to be the most honest with you guys and open up because I don't have an emotional attachment to someone I serve with, or a family member that's still strictly LDS and Mormon. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, any other questions and stuff?
Oh, I got a lot of questions here because I want to like, because you
Okay.
got so much information here. Well, maybe not so many questions, but so moving on from salvia to DMT, you extract DMT. How did you start the process of doing that, and how would you rank it on a scale of like, I know you think shrooms are the best. So like, if you put DMT
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
scale for that, what would you put it in? And like, what has been the most fun part about cultivating, extracting DMT and cultivating mushrooms as well? That can go into like a similar kind of question.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, right, like the first time I ever heard about DMT was in the Marine Corps when my buddy talked about getting chased by demons down the freeway. I'm like, man, that sounds scary and fun. I love horror movies. I love any Halloween, very scary kind of things because that's really what I grew up on. I grew up on like Japanese psychological thrillers and horrors. So anything that sounds scary sounds really fun to me. DMT, uh, Easter of the year 2020, my roommate who used to live with us, he got DMT, and so like we left the house because for me at that point I was still kind of strictly like, oh, no drugs. I don't want to really be around drugs. I only wanted to focus on mushrooms, but no one could ever get them, right? So I got to see a tiny like glimmer of this yellow powder inside a vial, right? We're living in a state that's really conservative, and he shows up with DMT. So he and his girlfriend, they smoke it, and I come back and I ask him like, oh, what was it like, right? Like, did you meet the devil? Were you running from demons? What was that like? And they talked about how they ingested it in the bathroom. They smoked it, vaped it, whatever, and they blasted off in what they described as like an intergalactic light show elevator that shot them to this dark room, a waiting room kind, and they said that they could feel like godlike entities, but they couldn't see anything. They could feel a presence around them, but there were no voices. There were nothing. And I'm like, okay, that sounds a lot more interesting in that kind of perspective, right? Because I was raised heavily religious, uh, right? Like we have this God in the Mormon religion where we're not allowed to take psychoactive compounds or anything like that. But right, like how cool would it be to interact with extraterrestrials or gods, goddesses, spirits, gestures of anything. So he didn't really describe much about like how he got it. He just said he got it from a coworker. And for years, I was watching, Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. The guy on there, he ordered like 4 kilos of the Mimosa hostilis root bark. You can order that root bark for t-shirt dyes, wink, wink, right? The problem is he ordered it internationally, and that set off the alarms for Interpol to, get him. And that whole story kind of scared me because I'm like, man, if I order Mimosa hostilis bark, I want to order a lot of it so I can extract a lot of and then dimethyltryptamine, right? But me being me, I've already been growing plants that contain DMT already, but none of them are really ready for extraction yet. It'll take a decade at least. So I'll obviously update the whole world when all that stuff's ready. But I like to show people that DMT can be found in a lot of things in nature, everywhere you look. I mean, not really, really, but there's a lot of plants that exist out there that contain it. In fact, you can go to Home Depot right now and you'd be able to find a plant that contains DMT and 5-MeO DMT. But we'll get into that a little later.
Okay.
So, in January of this year, my partner, she was undergoing surgery, so I was really like, I was like nervous. I was like, worried for her. So in order to calm my mind, I started looking at in depth trusted places to buy Mimosa hostilis bark that were already based in the USA. So I bought a kilo of it while I was in the hospital waiting room from a guy in Colorado. For t-shirt dye purposes, from his t-shirt website, right?
Of
You can
course,
make
yes.
beautiful deep purple colors with it. Yes, sir. So I bought a kilo of it. It came to my house in like 3 days. It was pretty fast. I bought bark chips because I wanted to shred the bark by hand, and I didn't want like people to add fillers in it, right? Because you can buy the powdered bark, but I don't really trust it entirely, right? You don't know if people are shoving other pieces of wood in there to make sales. So I just bought the pure purple heart. The purple chips. So I have found out a few things. If you go to Walmart and you buy the $10 blender that they offer, it's like one of the cheapest things ever. It's way better than a spice grinder for a lot of stuff. I use it for all my extractions. You just shove a handful of bark in there and you just spend like a minute shaking and shredding that stuff up. It's awesome. Just get the cheapest thing because I burned a spice grinder on like my third handful of bark. Um, so for me, uh, I like to do 500-gram extractions at a time. It's not the biggest
Yeah.
and it's not the smallest, but I'll throw in distilled water, sodium or oops, my bad. Nope, vinegar. The acetic acid is what I'm after, right? And I just let it boil and simmer for a while. I'd have to look at my notes for the exact recipe. So obviously, anyone who wants that, I will gladly and freely share all that information. My mind is I have a lot of notes, so it's easy for me to get exact details on trip reports. I can't just pull all perfect details all the time. I have to
And
look at notes sometimes.
let people know where they can contact you at.
Oh yeah, yeah. I only have an Instagram, psychonaut underscore marine. That is it. I don't have any kind of like Facebook page or Twitter or whatever. I only do Instagram because it's very visual. I want to capture people's attentions with the photographs that I take of extractions, of crystals, of mushrooms that I grow, of psychoactive plants. I mean, that's how you found me, right?
Yeah. All right.
Exactly, exactly. And that way on Instagram, I can show like a 12 page or a 12 photo slide of my exact extraction process. I get to show, right, like here's how much bark I weighed out, and this is how much distilled water I added, and this is how much vinegar is in there. Everything goes in there so that people can immediately find all that information. And I'm pretty open in the comments. People are allowed to ask and send messages all the time. I have people that I deal with internationally who are asking, "Oh, do you know about this super obscure rare plant in South America?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course. Here's all the information that I know about." Um, but yeah, so for DMT extractions, right? Um, in January, right? It's winter time. It's like below zero out here. So for fun, I just extract DMT. It keeps the house a little humid and warm, but it's nice. There's nothing really too inherently dangerous about it. My only caveats is get borosilicate glass from Amazon for like $20. Get the 2 liter uh, um, yeah, get the 2 liter glassware for it. I can, dang, see. Sometimes with my TBI, I can get lost in words or thought processes, but I can gladly show all that information.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you simmer and you strain out all your root bark. I would highly suggest getting a nut milk bag off Amazon. It's not fine because when you use like a coffee filter, that stuff clogs up instantly. It's going to take forever for you to drain that. If you just take a nut milk bag that's designed to juice nuts, um, you can juice your extract pretty quickly with gloves on. Even if it's boiling hot, it drains pretty quickly. And from there, you add sodium hydroxide. You can get food grade sodium hydroxide for making pretzels. Wink, wink. Right? You mix it in and you make a very basic solution. And then you go to the hardware store and you can get BMNP naphtha. That's your solvent. That's what's going to rip the DMT out of the solution, out of your aqueous solution. And you let it sit in a crock pot you buy from the thrift store for $5. It sits in a hot water bath, overnight or whatever. You kind of gently shake it up. One of the worst mistakes I made on my second extraction to kind of speed things up is violently shaking the solution up. Do not do that. It makes an emulsion where everything kind of mixes too much and takes forever to separate into two different layers. Then you go and you take your turkey baster, you suck all your solution off the top, and you put it into 2 hot water baths. Now, some people skip that step, but for me, I do not. The naphtha that I use is not reagent or lab grade. I'm getting hardware store naphtha, which is almost extremely pure, except there are some impurities in there. And I don't want people to kind of inhale that kind of stuff.
Isn't
So I
that
clean,
what's in mothballs, right?
to be honest, I don't know. Uh,
You talk about naphthalene, right? Is that what it's called?
no, no, just naphtha.
Naphtha.
It's a solvent. I mean, I guess I'd have to take a look at the ingredients on mothballs. I've actually never dealt with mothballs before.
Yeah, I think it is. I just looked it up. So yeah, okay. Because I know
Okay.
people use it to inhale and get high. I know that, but which is a terrible idea to do because it's not healthy.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, obviously do this in an open ventilated area. I'll do it in like the garage with a fan blowing to blow fumes and stuff away from me, and I'll just have a side door open so that neighbors can't see anything, they can't smell anything. It's the dead of winter, so no one wants to walk outside their house because it's easy to get frostbite out here. Uh, but but yeah, I mean that's what I love it because it's just a fun activity you can do in the darkness of night, you know. But yeah, I do two hot water washes. So if I happen to suck up any bark, any contaminants or anything like that, and all the contaminants that are in the naphtha, they can kind of get washed out, and it makes a nicer looking DMT crystal. I'll take the solution after the two hot water washes and dump it into a glass casserole tray. You know, you can buy those for pretty cheap from the thrift store, right? You cover it with tinfoil and you throw it in the freezer for a day or two. When you wake up in the morning, you can like lift the tinfoil up and you can see these little crystal clumps everywhere. The more DMT you have in your solution, the faster it'll precipitate out during the freezer precipitation, right? So my first extraction, it went beautifully. Pure white crystals, super nice looking. It was just so fine. My second extraction, I had a lot more DMT, but it had a little bit more of a long time where I accidentally emulsified and I shook up my solution way too much. I mean, it took a while to get it, but you can go to a sex shop and buy like a dilding apparatus that vibrates violently and that'll break the emulsion up. Good pro tip. But yeah, you just you take all your freezer or yeah your crystals that are inside this solution, right? You dump out the DMT solution, and so all the DMT crystals are inside your they're inside the casserole pan, right? You let that dry up overnight, you know, throughout the day. You know, all the leftover bits of solvent, they just dry out completely. You take a nice brand new clean razor blade, you wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol so there's no solvent, no no oils or grease or anything like that. You wear gloves throughout the whole process so no one's nasty grimy fingers are touching your product. You scrape up these beautiful white clean crystals, yellow crystals, whatever crystals. And if you want, you can actually recrystallize it. So you can take heptane from Amazon. You can kind of put it in a hot water bath to dissolve your crystals. Swirl it around. All the oils and stuff will separate, and you can throw that back in the freezer. You can, in the next morning, you dump out your heptane into a new mason jar to save for later, and you have brand new, like larger crystals, cleaner looking crystals. You know, it's such a beautiful process. I want people to realize like you can extract a lot of DMT with just a little bit of money. You don't need to be rich. Do not use a mason jar, right? Some people use mason jars. Don't use that. Just get lab grade borosilicate glassware. It's going to be much easier on you. Just spend a few bucks.
Oh my God, this is like a the dream come true for my viewers here who want to learn how to extract DMT. That's basically, I mean, you went through the whole process there. That was very interesting. Shit, I'm gonna have to start doing it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I have no time, but I know that that's your whole purpose in life now is to help people out with psychedelics and stuff. But so going with the DMT, what can you describe your craziest experience with it, or do you have one that you could think off the top of your head that people may find interesting?
So I've never posted any of my DMT trip reports before, and I've actually never posted my DMT extraction before. So I think I will post the DMT extraction here within the next couple of days or so. Give your audience something nice to look at. You know, I've been taking pictures of the whole process, and all the measurements are there, so anyone can follow step by step. But so in the summer of last year, my buddy Nate, he gifted me a DMT vape pen, right? Because I've been looking for DMT, and I knew I was going to extract it, but again, I was too afraid of getting caught for having an insane amount of root bark, so I kind of held off for a while. He gave me this vape pen because like he didn't really like the body load of DMT, right? So for me, because I've never really smoked anything before, my wife, she would have to like walk me through, okay, here's your vape pen. You kind of suck on it, hold it in for as long as possible. I was watching how people were kind of like smoking or like vaping like nicotine per se. The process is a little bit different because you want to inhale as much as possible and hold it in for as long as possible, right? I mean, now. Um, but yeah, with the vape pen, the only issue that I have with it is sometimes those cheaper batteries and whatnot, they don't really do a good job. It's like you're kind of more wasting it, or it doesn't heat it up properly. People need to realize you don't want to actually smoke DMT. You're trying to vape DMT. You want it to melt and vaporize. You don't want to burn it and inhale those kinds of vapors, because that's not what's going to allow for you to have that experience. And the issue I have with vaping the DMT from the pen is I don't know the exact dosage that I'm taking, so I can't write that in my notes. Oh, I inhaled 25 milligrams of pure and then dimethyltryptamine at 0 100, right? I right. I took three random puffs, held it in for 30 seconds, took a 10-second drag from it, waited 2 seconds in between each puff, whatever, right? So I actually wasted an entire cartridge trying to learn how to smoke DMT properly, and that was awful. So I handed the pen off to my wife, who in December of last year, when our friend, she came up from North Carolina, she wanted to have a mushroom experience from these philosophy.
Oh,
Ate some penis envy that I grew. My wife, she took the vape, and she sat on the couch, and I smelled like DMT. I turned around, and she started blasting off. She talked about going through like this infinite geometrical rainbow, like crystal, like tunnel that zoomed her off into infinity. And then she talked about breaking through into this purplish crystal dimension surrounded by these goddesses that were holding hands in a circle. They wouldn't talk to her, they would not acknowledge her. And then 5 minutes later, she came to the kitchen as if nothing happened. I mean, she had a smile on her face, and she told me the story. High school, but I always stayed away, and I was like, man, that sounds so weird. Why would you take LSD, and why would you smoke cannabis? That just sounds weird. So she has way more experience, but she doesn't have a drive to just get high or get fucked up all the time. So I was like, man, that sounds so cool. I tried it and I just could not blast off. So then for New Year's Eve, we went over to her parents' house again. And so I gave the pen to her mom and I told her all about it. She came back from her bedroom and was like, that is not for me. I took one puff and the world was spinning and like the lights brightened up, but I just don't like stuff that messes with my head. So she gave me the pen. I told my father-in-law all about DMT. I've been telling him for years. So he went into the bedroom and he took it. He talked about how it felt like someone grabbed his head and like threw him through the universe and was seeing like Star Wars hyper speed type visuals where it felt like he was literally like getting his head slammed into universe after universe and just breaking through, but he never like fully broke through, just like he was just blasting off essentially. And then he came back out of the bedroom after about like 5 to 7 minutes and was like, wow, that was wild. Um, and then the DMT cartridge was all empty. So I was like, I need to extract it now. So yeah, a month later or so, I started gathering all these crystals and vials. Like this is extract number one, this is number two, this is number three, right? All these different like, today I'm gonna try 25 milligrams of extract number one. That was my best looking crystals, like aesthetically. So it was just this nice, like calm spring day. I've always been afraid of like just smoking DMT and like screaming or like thrashing out. So I've always just been trying to be careful. So I would go out into the desert sometimes to just blast off. And I mean, my experiences have just been so wild. Um, I finally learned how to smoke because I actually learned how to smoke cannabis recently. I've never smoked cannabis until May of this year. So I kind of just been using that as like if I can understand how to inhale cannabis, then I can learn how to actually inhale DMT. So then, yeah, I would just go through and blast off. My buddy, he recommended a pipe. I think it's called like the Eclipse or something like that. It's more pricey in my opinion, but I think it's well worth it for someone like me who doesn't really smoke a lot. Um, right? It's like you load your crystals up of whatever you want to smoke into glass vials. You screw it into this pipe, and you have someone who can like heat the pipe up gently for you. You heat up the glass, and from there you just suck on it, you inhale, you hold it in for as long as possible until like you feel like your eyes are going to pop out of your soul, and you just let go, you just drop on the earth. You're not like dropping per se, but like you're already laying down, but you kind of slowly relax as all of a sudden these bright crazy lights just start you know forming these intricate geometric patterns that humans have such a hard time describing, and blasting off into all these different realms and interacting with all these different interdimensional creatures per se. I won't get into too many details because I would like to save that trip report for a very nice day. I don't want to like spoil the experience for some people. There's actually someone who's going to be coming up here to try DMT soon, so I'm pretty excited for her. But yeah, any other questions, man?
Um, yeah, no, when I did DMT last night actually, and
Oh,
dude, the past couple times I've been doing it, my heart has just been like it beats so fast. I don't like I want to break through and everything, but like I just feel like I can't. And it was just sitting there. I knew if I took one more hit, I knew I would have broke through. But at that point, like I would close my eyes and I would see purple visions and fractals and stuff. And it was dark out last night. Oh, of course, at nighttime. But like I usually like to do
yeah.
it, whenever. But at nighttime, I feel like it's better. But yeah, no, the one time where I really had an effect from it was when the second to last time I did it, and I just got pushed back. Everything just became fractals, and I knew I was close to it, but for some reason my body is telling me like, don't go further. And I just feel like I don't
Um,
know who's telling me, I don't know what is, but like it's just telling me not to do that, which is kind of disappointing. And I feel like I want to, but I just physically can't. And it's either I have to really take a huge hit in the beginning, but see, with me, I have to, since I don't smoke weed, since I get so paranoid and anxious from it, I have to use other things. I use Damiana, and the taste,
oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, the taste is not so good. It's just the harshness of it. It's not like a cigarette taste, but it's bad, and it just stays in your mouth for
yeah.
until like I even tasted this morning. I brushed my teeth and everything, and like I still taste it, but yeah, it's just
Oh,
I don't know what is doing it, but it is making me upset that I can't go further. But let's see here. I got a couple more. Unless let's see here. Oh, I want you to talk about the strongest mushroom in the world, the Panaeolus cyanescens, and I want you to like give your information on it because you went and you had a summary for me, but I want people to know about it. I just recently did a video on it, the strongest mushroom in the world, and I want people to know about it because it is very strong, and I think that everyone should get a get some sort of knowledge on it because I think it's very interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. So a lot of times in the mushroom community, we always like to argue about, oh, this is the most potent. This is tested the highest, right? And a lot of people on like Reddit and some of the older books, they all use the same outdated information about, oh yeah, Salvia azurescens, the one that grows in the Oregon coast in Washington, right? That's the strongest. Paul Stamets said that, so that's it. That's the one. Um, Recently, we've been finding out that there's a mushroom that I mean, a lot of people haven't taken around the world a lot. It grows in tropical and subtropical regions around the world called Panaeolus cyanescens. Panaeolus cyanescens tests the highest over and over and over again. It's insane how much psilocybin, psilocin, and other derivatives and analogs it contains. It grows on, yeah, dung, and so like you really want to go out when it's nice, warm, and wet. Florida, Jamaica, Mexico, places in South America have them. Southeastern United States will have it, and it's a little bit more difficult to grow than like Salvia cubensis. Not saying it's impossible, but people have been growing Salvia cubensis for decades, and we've mastered that species quite well. So the popularity of Panaeolus sinensis has been kind of skyrocketing a little bit in our community the past couple of years because it's been winning awards in our grow competitions and potency. So I will admit, I've never successfully grown the species. It's one that I'm actually about to currently. I've been working on growing it from spore and whatnot. Right now, I've got grain jars full of the mycelium of it. Gonna break that out and sorry, someone just texted me. Yeah, just break that out, put it in the substrate, and grow it from there. Um, this species, I was gifted 2 capsules of it. I dumped the capsules out. It was around Christmas time of this year, or 2023. It was late December. It weighed 1.2 grams of the powdered mushrooms. My buddy Nate gave it to me because he's been, kind of growing it. And so I took it. I ate like a fruit gummy to help with the flavor of it. So I choked the powder down because for me, I don't. I want to weigh everything, so I emptied the capsule so I know exactly how much powder I'm taking.
Mm-hmm.
I took it, and like roughly 20 minutes later, I can feel it, and it hits me harder and harder than I could ever imagine. Like I'm well aware this is one of the strongest in the world, so I know there's that, right? The cultivar, I mean not cultivar, but the variety that I took was called TTBVI, which stands for Tamarind Tree, British Virgin Islands. That's the origin of this exact mushroom.
Wow.
That was, collected, and now its DNA is everywhere, right? That's the one that's going to have like one of the highest rated potencies in our HPLC testing. So it's hitting me so hard. I had to call my buddy Nate, and I was on the phone with him, and he said like I sounded like I was way out there because everything's starting to melt around me. So I have a collection of like really morbid curiosities. I have coffins in my collection. I have all sorts of weird stuff. I have gotten a Ouija board from the 1920s on a piano in my living room. And I'm looking at the Ouija board, and the letters start melting off of it. I start noticing that my plants are dripping green liquid leaves off. The light is starting to melt, and the walls. So, like, if you look at typical American houses, they have that like painted texture. Some people have a finer texture. Some people have like weird, like irregular humps everywhere. I start noticing that those things are growing, and like the paint is melting off the walls. I'm looking at my bookshelf, and the titles are starting to fall off and trickle like liquid letters everywhere. And so immediately, every single time I take mushrooms, I vomit, I throw up. I don't know why. This is actually a problem that I've been trying to solve for a couple of years now.
Hmm.
I mean, my first few trips have went fine without any vomiting, but I mean, I've had over a dozen experiences now that every single time I take mushrooms, I throw up. Now,
Hmm.
for me, like right after I threw up, he hung up. I didn't want him to listen to me throwing up anymore. My wife, she got a bowl for me so I could throw up in that instead of all over the bed or the pull-out couch. And I am melting. I threw a blanket over my face so I'm not being overwhelmed. And the texture of the blanket is dripping everywhere. Like it feels like liquid, like cotton polyester, whatever the texture is. It's melting all over my hands. I'm seeing like blood red colors from this Marine Corps blanket that I have. And it looks like there's a black hole that's forming inside this blanket, and all of a sudden it felt like I got sucked into this black hole, and I'm getting ripped through infinite amount of universes where all of a sudden I'm starting to see stars and galaxies, nebulas, and it feels like I'm just floating in space. There's complete ego dissolution where I didn't even know I was a human being anymore. I just thought I was an entity just floating in the cosmos, just riding it out. I I mean, like I didn't feel bad anymore about throwing up because anytime I throw up, it always feels like the end of the world for me, especially while under the influence. Right? Like I have to preserve myself to prevent myself from choking on my own vomit. So that's what I highly recommend having a trip sitter for compounds you have no clue what's going to happen. Right? If someone can simply like pat you on the back and roll you on your side while you're throwing up, that'll save your life so you don't end up as an accidental death.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, right, there has to be some sort of safety involved when you take extremely mind altering compounds. But again, I know recently a lot of people have been hyping up Enigma, right? Like you've heard about this a couple months ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Enigma is a cubensis mushroom. It's a cross between penis envy and B plus. It's called tidal wave, and then one of the mutations from tidal wave came out to these weird brain coral blob looking things, and they were testing really high. So right, like that was everyone's dream culture to grow and to consume. I've grown it out a handful of times. I've lemon teched 4.2 grams of Enigma in May of last year. And that was really intense where, at first everything's melting and then I'm throwing up for like 5 hours straight. I'm like fist fighting the devil and going to hell and whatnot. It was really intense. 1.2 grams of pineal cyanescence felt the same as 4.2 grams of lemon tech Enigma for me. I'm a very sensitive individual to mushrooms. Even microdoses can actually be too much for me. That's why I make all my own so that I can make sure that I'm not tripping too much, right? I can
Um,
make all my own blends of different varieties.
could you
Um,
say before you continue on how much you told me before, but how much it is for like regular mushrooms? How much the potency is for like if you were to take Paniola sinensis compared to like a normal mellow mushroom? How many grams that would be?
I would say, I mean, it's right. That's kind of difficult because everyone's throwing all sorts of different philosophy cubensis. Man, yeah. I mean, 1 gram of paniola essence feels like 8 to 10 grams of like a typical golden teacher experience or B plus or Cambodians. That's how intensive it can be. And maybe even I would take like a quarter gram of paniola cyanescence if you want to like dive in. That would probably feel like an eighth of regular stuff. That's how powerful this stuff
So
is.
crazy, dude.
This
Oh
stuff
my
is,
god.
yeah, it is no joke. Um,
S-
yeah, and so like for like 3 or 4 hours, I was floating in the universe. It just felt like I was just gone. I can. There was anytime I'm on mushrooms, I can't use my limbs. I can't write. I can't. do anything. So I'm literally like laying there paralyzed. And eventually I wake up because I have this like not really extreme pain, but I need to piss badly. So like my bladder's full because I've been, hydrating all day, getting ready for this experience. I had to crawl to the bathroom, which is all the way down the hall, which feels like it's going on for infinity. And so I'm like literally just Marine Corps low crawling and just stumbling around. I get up to the toilet, and I mean, I have to sit down. There's no way I can safely stand up and do this. I get back, and it felt like I was finally like parts of my soul and spirit were, being put back on my body. And I had this recollection that the television was on. My wife, she was watching, one of her shows, and I'm like, this is reality. I'm back. Like that's it. Like I'm allowed to be a human being again. And so like I was still tripping heavily. I mean, for me, I'm actually not really a fan of movies and TV that much. Like I'll still watch it, but I don't know, man. I'm not really into looking at a screen for too much. So like I can understand the comedy or whatever it was that was going on. It was just like I just disappeared into a universe that no humans have probably ever seen or ever detected before, and now I'm allowed to, come back to Earth. So the day after, like I was feeling fantastic, like I was full of life, everything was great again. I could, move and do anything that I could ever want. But yeah, if you're after like, oh, I'm gonna try the most potent mushrooms, go after pineal cyanessence. Start at a low dose so you can figure out like what's a good dose for you. Because I don't want who will take 3 grams for the very
Oh my
first mushroom trip.
God.
Or
Oh
dude,
man.
you would be out there for a long time. Or like if you tried making ayahuasca or something, oof, that would be way beyond something that you'd want to. Salawaska is an ayahuasca analog where you take MAOIs with psilocybin containing mushrooms, right? Like MAOIs are what allows DMT to be orally active in ayahuasca. Harmane, harmaline, harmine, tetrahydroharmane, things like that, right? They're in the Banisteriopsis cappyi vine. They're in like Syrian rue, the panagulum, and dark chocolate, things like that. So those are all MAOI containing. They allow compounds. They don't allow these compounds to break down as rapidly. So you can be inside an experience for a lot longer. Like Changa, for example, is basically smokable ayahuasca. It's DMT infused in herbs or cannabis, and you have MAOIs mixed in so that you can basically be stuck in like a DMT like realm. It won't feel perfectly like DMT because there's other stuff there too. So it's a different experience. That's why it's like you can't really compare a pure vaped DMT experience to South American traditional ayahuasca. Very different. That's why I love exploring all these different ways to take these compounds.
Mm-hmm. Um, okay, so I'm probably gonna ask one more question here. Since my channel deals with a lot of deliriants and stuff, I'm actually working on a belladonna video right now, which I'm actually very excited to release. It's
Oh,
gonna be really
nuts.
good. So you mentioned to me before that you were growing Datura and you were going to take it scientifically for research purposes. Um,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on Datura? Have you taken it, and or if you are going to take it, when are you planning to do it? And like, do you think there are benefits to it that people may not state? Because I know people are definitely very afraid to try it, which I think people shouldn't try it. I don't think like I feel like if most normal people, maybe like you, I wouldn't be afraid for you to try it. But like people who are just trying to get high or something, those are the people that need to avoid plants like that because they could just do the wrong amount, be trapped in psychosis for a while. But like, is there what are some like I don't know some positive purposes it can bring and like how it can be incorporated into your like PTSD cure a little bit? Is there anything that you might want to state that can do that, or do you think we should stay away and just let it be?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I liked studying other religions. I wanted to see what other people said all the time, right? Like in the LDS religion, we're extremely strict. We believe that we're. I mean, I'm not LDS anymore, so right. Like I'm already indoctrinated in a way. That's what I automatically said. We believe, right? That's what we're essentially brainwashed to say. But the church believes that it's the only true church on earth and that everything else is false and demonic, essentially. They don't have all the pieces we do. We're the only right church. So for me, I was a little bit of a rebel kid and I wanted to look up black magic, voodoo, hoodoo, Afro Caribbean religions. I was very interested in the Salem witch trials when I first moved to this state. So I got a book. It was called Encyclopedia Horrifica. That was in sixth grade. It was in our school library, and I was reading in the section about zombies, right? Actual classic traditional Haitian zombies, not the Hollywood bullshit that goes on, but like the whole essence of what real zombies are. And in the Afro Caribbean religions, there is something called zombie poison. Zombie poison is a mix of like a bunch of different constituents that are psychoactive, are deadly and poisonous. It contains like tetrodotoxin, which comes from pufferfish, right? In Japan, I love pufferfish. It's extremely dangerous, right? So that's why there's that whole thing of you need to be certified in order
Yeah.
to serve pufferfish in restaurants. I
Right.
really love the flavor of pufferfish. I love risk. I love reward. Um, Another of the main ingredients in zombie poison is actually Datura stramonium, also known as zombie cucumber, down in like those Caribbean islands. Right? It looks like a fucked up evil cucumber, right? And so like
Yeah.
I didn't know it was psychoactive. I just thought it was this crazy looking spiky plant, and I didn't know anything about its mind altering effects. I just knew I needed to get a hold of it someday to grow it out. And so one of the very first things I ever like cultivated that were psychoactive was actually deuterostromonium. I took a cup from McDonald's. I cut the bottom clear part out, grabbed a handful of clay soil from my backyard, put it on my piano. And so the day these seeds from eBay arrived, I put them in and I started teaching myself how to grow Datura. And it was a little 3-inch plant. It made a little cute flower. It was nice. It was a right, like it kind of shows you that you can grow Datura in the worst conditions possible and it'll still grow just fine. Um, I have always loved um, plants that were involved in traditional forms of magic and medicine. So a lot of the nightshades are involved in medicine and magic, like the flying witches ointments of medieval Europe.
Hmm.
Have you ever heard about that?
Yeah, I did a video on one of my first videos. I did like an analysis on Datura. I remember researching all that crap, and yeah, it's very very interesting.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, Datura is one of those ones that were possibly used in it. And for me, like actually, like when I was researching mushrooms, I also had to learn about some of the other stuff too. So I actually found your channel in 2021 with the Datura stories, and I was in love. I would like work in the lab, like cutting agar and swiping agar, knocking grains up. I was doing all that listening to the Datura stories, and I would like wake my wife up in the middle of the night, babe, Tales of the Trip. He just put this new video out. You got to listen to it, and she actually would listen to it. Like 3 days long trip. I was seeing blood everywhere, and I was being chased by the cops in a cornfield. Right? I'm like, man, this is exciting. This is what I need to experience. Obviously, I'm going to highly recommend that almost every single person on the planet stay away from Datura. It is not something that people should mess with without a true understanding. But did you know Datura and Brugmansias, which are related,
Yeah.
were actually used in ayahuasca, San Pedro brews, and Native Americans actually use these plants still to this day. They still consume them.
I did not know
In
that.
Yes, in Southern California, the Chumash tribe, they actually consume Datura wrightii for dreams, prophetic visions, and how to introduce boys into real men. It's part of their rituals, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, these people have thousands of years of usage, so they know what the correct dosages are and how it's taken, right? When you have a bunch of American teenagers hearing that, oh yeah, you can take this and it's just like LSD, man. You just got to choke down these pods and
Oh
boof
God.
these seeds or whatever, right? People are like getting excited. Oh, cool! This is basically free. I don't have to pay for LSD, right? That's how you end up with these horror stories all the time. Now, right? There are people that actually enjoy Datura. My youngest brother actually took Datura once at work and had visions of making burritos and having like customers talk to him at the same time when he would find out that none of these people are actually real. Um, so for me, I've always just been like, ooh, that sounds kind of exciting. Obviously, I want to do it under extreme supervision, but there are communities of people online who actually enjoy Datura. Now, I'm not going to go seek these people out and ignore their advice and just say, I took 30 pods and I hate you all because no, I've got extreme psychosis in the hospital, right? They have guides about how to take it, right? You can take 1 to 10 seeds as your starting dose. Don't take any more. See what the experience is like. Do you have extreme cotton mouth? Do you have weird visions? Right? Like, does everything get blurry? But again, I'm not going to encourage that many people to actually ever try Datura because it can be dangerous if used um, inappropriately. Sorry, I just got another text. Looks like some exciting stuff's going to be happening in the future.
Oh God.
But yes, yeah, I'll tell you more about it afterwards.
Okay.
I think you'll be very excited.
Oh God.
Um, yeah, it's real dream come true. I'm very excited.
Okay.
But so for full disclosure, I have not taken Datura. I grow half a dozen different species of Datura and Brugmansias. All right, they all contain scopolamine, hyoscyamine, um, all these alkaloids, tropane alkaloids. Right, something people don't realize is scopolamine is very closely related to cocaine. They are both tropane alkaloids. Now, you're not going to get the same effects. You can't just tell people, oh yeah, scopolamine and Datura, it's just like cocaine and LSD mixed together, right? That's not how that works pharmacologically. Um, but I do really want to try Datura because I've been growing so many different species: Datura anoxia, Datura stramonium, Datura metal, Brugmansias, right? I like to grow all these things. And on top of that, I have a huge nightshade collection. Hyoscyamus albus, right? White henbane, black henbane, um, Egyptian henbane soon, right? Like all these different things that have similar constituents. Mandrake, the Mandragora officinalis, right? Because I do want to explore how people have been using these things. I want to see, why do people really enjoy this? Did you know that scopolamine is actually used in medical institutions to this day? It's actually used as a anti-nauseating medication.
Yeah.
It's transdermal. You can put a patch on and you won't get seasick as much, right?
Yep.
That's actually one of those things I want to explore because one of my like PTSD triggers essentially is when I undergo G forces, when I ride in helicopters, when I go on roller coasters, or when I go on an ocean that's really turbulent and I feel like I'm just getting rocked way too much. That actually triggers me too much. So I want to see about getting right, like making my own Datura paste to rub on my temples to prevent me from throwing up everywhere.
Right.
And but yeah, I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day, Mushman 9000. He's an awesome cultivator, light years beyond me, based out of Canada. He told me about how when he was living in Mexico, one of their healers rubbed a Datura paste on his temples because they use it for time travel purposes, which I thought was just so fascinating. right? Like people still use it to this day. It's just the way that you use it that makes the most sense, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm going to take it in an appropriate dosage so I know, oh, 2107, I ingested 17 Datura stramonium seeds. 2 hours later, I feel like I just smoked a ton of cannabis with how dry my mouth is. I need water fucking badly before I die, whatever, right? Obviously, my wife, she's actually a medical assistant, and she's a trained phlebotomist. She's always been interested in the medical field. So I kind of have some safety measures in place for everything, right? She can administer IVs. And for me, I actually have almost no trust in hospitals, paramedics, or anything like that. And it's not because of them, it's because of me. The kind of work that I do is extremely clandestine, right? If I were to get caught, obviously a lot of bad things could happen. So for me, I never want to go to a hospital for anything. So everything's taken safely. There's the perfect set and setting every single time. And I always have, like people around who can help immediately if something goes bad. It's important to have a special team of people online and in person who, if I'm going through something rough, like I can like call on them and right, it's psychedelic therapy. One of my favorite compounds to use is MDA. Yeah, you're quite well aware of that.
I am. Yeah.
MDA is fantastic, right?
Of course. Yes. It is fun. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, what's your favorite part about it?
Just the loving feeling of everyone around me. Like it's very similar to MDMA, but like it's just like more overpowering a little bit, but in a good way. It's not like overpowering to the point where you can't function. It's just like everything is more enhanced, and I that's the part I love because I'm a stimulant guy, and that's a very psychedelic stimulant right there, and that's like a perfect
Oh yeah,
perfect drug for me.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, oh, is that were
Yeah.
you
Anything else?
um That's, I mean, we could have you on again at some point because that was very interesting to talk about, but because it is getting close to a 2 hour mark. I think that was a really great interview. I think people on here really learned a lot. Shit, people might be learning how to extract their own DMT now, thanks to you.
Hell yeah.
So if you just want to listen back, listen to the step-by-step process, you can find out. You just got to have a little, you just got to be patient, have a little, some sort of intelligence, and just continue with it. But yeah, that was a really great interview. I appreciate you being on, and let's talk soon. Tell me about what you wanted to tell me after this. I'm going to talk about the interview a little bit by myself, but yeah, that was a very interesting interview. So thank you for being on Psychonaut Marine.
Oh yeah, anytime, man. Always happy to help. I'm always happy to help anyone. Yeah, I mean, you know that. I Yeah, psychedelic tech support when people are having challenging trips, right? I don't want people going and thinking, "Oh, I took mushrooms and I had this horrible experience," right? Like I try to make myself available so I can talk people through. I've been through some of the roughest trips ever, and I'm not trying to say that to like puff up my ego, but like in Jamaica under that clinical study, I literally thought I had died. I thought like nothing was real. I was screaming about aliens, the DEA. I was screaming about like I'm evil incarnate, and I thought I was inside a grave and like blasting off into hell and slaughtering demons. So I had veterans that were around being able to hold me and remind me like humans, they love you no matter what you believe. So I'm here for that. I want people to know that like even if I can't per se like help you out on your trip, that you should know that you can always rely on someone around you. It takes courage. It takes courage to take psychedelics. It takes courage to undergo extreme stress, trauma, extreme psychedelic experiences. I try to help people like, oh, hey, here's all my secret tips and tricks on how to grow to the best of your ability, how to grow your own, right? Like whatever you want. I am in charge of hundreds of different species and cultivars and varieties of mushrooms, of plants, of anything. I mean, you and all the people on Instagram have been able to see all these experiments that I'm doing. There's just so much because I want people to realize that. They're right. Like you don't have to go to that shady person and get, like a terrible Ziploc bag full of crushed up, dried, nasty, substrate covered mushrooms that are really weak. Learn how
Yeah.
to harvest your own, learn how to, clean your house so you can have a great trip, do whatever. Just because you have a challenging trip doesn't mean that you should never go into psychedelics again, right? Because if you suffer from food poisoning from a meal from a restaurant, is that going to stop you from ever eating food ever again? Hell no, man. When you're better, you're going to be eating food again. So just because you've had a terrible experience doesn't mean you should just quit it forever. It's going to be shorter lasting than food poisoning,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
That's a good
yeah, just have
analogy.
that courage. Yeah, take that to heart. I know we talked about that kind of recently.
Yeah. No, yeah, so I recently had some bad trips on it. I think it might be, I don't know, I think it might be mixing bad with my Abilify. I have my psychiatrist appointment coming up soon because one of the symptoms could be akathisia, and I feel like that is what's making my trips become bad. But like, and I'm recently getting off of withdrawal, and it's just, I think everything mixing together is just being bad for me. So I just have to wait and see. And I think I'm going to take a break for a little bit here, but I will come back for sure. But yeah, so
Good plan.
yeah, thank you so much for being on. Send me the articles and then also tell me the good news. And yeah, so if you just want to hang up and I will probably talk here a little bit more and then we'll end this thing. So thank you so much
Yes,
for
sir.
being on.
Anytime. Take care.
All right, you too. All right, we are here on the Trip Sitters after show. Not really an after show, but yeah. So that was a very interesting interview. It definitely brought some light onto what you should be doing, what is safe, and what how it's possible to just have anybody do this thing, as long as you got some sort of like mindset that you want to do it. Like anything is possible, like even playing guitar. If you want to play guitar, just do it. It's not too hard. I mean, it's hard to start, it's definitely going to be hard to do it, but that's what practice is for, right? So when you practice and you make things perfect, that's how things will just be, you know going for you. But yeah, no, it was very informative. If anyone has any questions for me, I will gladly answer them. And like I said, or like he said, his Instagram is psychonaut_marine. So if you have any questions, be sure to ask him on there. I mean, he is like one of the smartest people I think I've ever met. Learning that he was 27 years old today, that shocked me, as that's only 2 years older than me. So I was definitely shocked when he said he has wife and kids and family. Like I just assumed he was in his 30s, maybe close to 40. But no, that was very shocking to learn. So even at a young age, you can do that shit. Even at a young age. So it's never too late to start it, especially if you want to have a safe trip. Because like he said at the end there about buying substrate from random people on the internet or buying from the street, whatever, and you get these dirty ass mushrooms and they're all just it's just a normal just sort of okay trip when you can actually grow your own, cultivate it, and actually have like the best trip ever. Because I remember watching Drugs Incorporated at the beginning of this podcast. Well, the beginning that wasn't screwed up. If you missed that, that was yeah, that was bad. But everything cleared up. But there was an episode of Drugs Incorporated. I don't know if you guys remember that show, but that was one of my favorite shows when I was a teenager. I loved watching it. This guy would have migraines, like he said, he would have migraines, and he would have to take shrooms to cure them. That was his only cure. And it worked. It worked though, but he did not like the tripping aspect of it. He did not want to trip, but he had to because his migraines were so bad. Luckily for me, I've never had a migraine. I'm glad I've never had one in my life. But yeah, no, they're very scary for sure. People have had them, from what I've heard, especially what he said about having to go out and have to go for a 13-mile run while you have a migraine. That just sounds completely horrible. Like, no wonder PTSD happened because of that shit. That is just very, very scary. Um, anyways, so yeah, that was a very great interview. I'm gonna be doing a belladonna trip report video. I got to finish editing it. If you guys want it out today, I might have to go pretty soon, I think. But yeah, no, it's some very interesting trips. I'm running out of AI prompts. I have to find a good new AI page because the AI page I've been using for my thumbnails, they stopped selling the correct. And I found some great ass photos, images that I can use, and it's been bad. So I've been trying to I've been trying to get it perfectly with the prompts that I only have to use one prompt for it to even get something. And usually it's been working. I found a good prompt for it. I'm not going to say what it is because if I say what it is, then the thumbnails will be spoiled. But it's a very long and intricate, detailed thing that I put in there to get these prompts. And sometimes it takes a while to find one, but other times it's like the first one you'll come up and you'll be like, okay, that looks pretty good. But yeah, no, we got a Belladonna video coming up. More deliriants. Yes, deliriants are a lot of fun to talk about. Especially these three stories that I found for today or tomorrow, maybe. I'm going to Cedar Point tomorrow, as I need to go on another vacation. I just came back from vacation. I was in Utah. Had a dirty trip on ketamine. Ketamine was terrible. I do not recommend ketamine. I thought it was one of the worst drugs I think I've ever taken in my life. I don't know how British people do it all the time. It just was not fun at all. I thought I was gonna die. I literally thought I was gonna die. That was my first time doing it. I did 80 milligrams and that was okay. And I was like, I felt pretty sedated. But then I did 100 milligrams like 2 hours later, and I was just like, oh my god, dude, I felt like I was just gonna pass. I got so wobbly, and like my heart started beating really fast. And yeah, it's just I don't really like snorting anything either. If I could take it in a pill, I would much rather do that. I just hate snorting stuff, and the drip was terrible. Um, but yeah, no, it was not fun. You did 0.75. Holy crap, dude, that's a lot. I think if I took that much, I definitely would have Matthew Perry'd myself. Dude, he was in a hot because at the hotel I stayed at there was a hot tub, and I was thinking like I was imagining his overdose. Um, how he died in the hot tub. Like if I went in there and I fucking died or something, I thought I was gonna die in my fucking hotel room, and I was very scared. It was very scary, and yeah, I don't recommend it. But a lot of people find entertainment in it. A lot of people actually like how it feels, but for me, I'm not a fan, and neither is Psychonaut Marine. He's had experience with it, and I didn't want to get too much into it, but because there could be more episodes with him. But yeah, no, he had a lot to say, and it was a very fun time. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it there. I think that was a great interview. It's almost 2 hours long. But yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. This podcast will be up on Spotify pretty soon, and then I'll try to get the Belladonna video out today. If I don't, it'll definitely be out tomorrow because it'll be very interesting. I'm gonna call it the natural horror of Belladonna. So be on the lookout for the natural horror of Belladonna because natural, got a plant and it's natural. So. It's naturally horrific, what it is, that's for sure. But all right, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and stay tuned for another Trip Sitters podcast, as next week we'll probably be back with Vivek. I wanted him to come on here today, but I figured it'd probably be best that if, just having Psychonaut Marine talk, and I asked the questions, so I figured that it would be just best for us to just have a solo. But next week we'll be back, maybe with another interviewer or by ourselves. I really don't know, but yeah, we're gonna be hopping on to episode 11, which is crazy. We've done 10 of these things already, even though episode 9, I don't know if that really counts because I just went on there and talked about a couple things for like 30 minutes. So yeah. Anyways, have a wonderful day, and I love you all. Thank you. I love you too. And be safe out there, guys. Seriously, be safe. Don't do anything stupid. Even with shrooms, shrooms are safe. You can't be stupid with them. You can't disrespect them because they don't want to disrespect you. So if you disrespect them, they will do it back for sure. But you just got to be careful and be safe out there, guys. So I love you all, and have a good day. Be on the lookout